We're bringing in consultants with fresh perspectives, Julian said as he slid the termination papers across the polished mahogany table. Your legacy systems are holding us back. My name is Hunter Mercer. I'm 47 years old, and until that moment, I was the senior systems architect at Iron Veil Technologies, a position I'd held for 18 years. I built their core software platform from the ground up, back when we were just 6 people crammed into a warehouse in Seattle. Fueled by caffeine and code, I helped shape the company from scratch. I nodded, took the packet without flinching, and simply said, "I understand." Then I stood and quietly started packing my desk while HR watched from the doorway. The new CEO had only been around for 3 months. Young, maybe 40 tops. He was brought in by the private equity group that had acquired us last year. Designer suits, polished talk about modernization and operational efficiency, but never once did he ask how our systems actually worked. That morning, he strolled in with 2 consultants from some buzzword-happy firm in San Francisco. It didn't take a genius to figure out what that meant. 18 years. I had turned down higher offers, skipped birthdays and baseball games, and spent more nights than I could count fixing bugs while everyone else slept. I didn't do it for glory. I did it because I believed in what we were building. They gave me 30 minutes to clear out. I only needed 15. On my way out, I passed Anna in accounting, one of the few who had been there since day one. Her eyes widened when she saw the box in my arms. "Hunter, what's going on?" she asked. "Time for fresh perspectives," I answered quietly. The security guard walked me to the elevator. Tyler, a good kid. I fish with his dad on weekends. He kept his eyes low. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer." "Not your fault," I told him. I drove home in silence. No radio, no calls, just the soft rhythm of the wipers clearing away the steady Seattle rain. Karen wasn't home yet. I set the box on the kitchen counter, pulled out a few things, my old coffee mug, framed family pictures, and a small external drive. Nothing that belonged to the company. Then I brewed a pot of coffee and opened my personal laptop. Inside a folder I'd created years ago was every document proving I'd written the core algorithm Iron Veil still depended on, developed on my own time, using my own gear. The timestamp and copyright registration dated 6 months before I even signed my employment contract. I'd offered the company a perpetual license. Generous, really. But clearly, the new leadership never thought to check. I took a long sip of coffee, leaned back, and waited. I knew the first system failure wasn't far off. I met Harold Voss at a programming conference in Portland back in 2004. We connected instantly. 2 developers frustrated by the limitations of inventory management systems. Harold had just co-founded Iron Veil with his brother-in-law and a handful of engineers. Their early product showed potential but couldn't scale. Over a round of beers, I scribbled out a sketch for an algorithm that could fix their core bottleneck. He hired me the next day. For the first 5 years, we pulled 80-hour weeks. I missed Olivia's first steps trying to stop a server meltdown. Karen nearly left me. Twice. "You're married to the company," she'd say. She wasn't wrong. When Harold had a heart attack in 2011, I didn't ask. I just stepped up. I didn't want the CEO title, but I made sure the company stayed functional. When investors asked questions, I showed them the data. When competitors tried to lure away our developers, I convinced them to stay. Harold eventually sold the company in 2019, said he wanted more time with his grandkids. I got it, but that was when I felt the first cracks. The new owners didn't care about the code base, the people, or the long-term vision. They cared about quarterly results and endless scaling. Then came the pandemic, and while other systems crashed, ours kept running. Our clients, hospitals' supply chains depended on it. Government agencies and hospital chains depended on our platform without fail. I pulled 20-hour days just to keep it stable. The board gave me a plaque and a bonus. Nice gestures. Last year came another buyout, this time by private equity. That's when Julian Keene arrived as CEO. 2 weeks in, he canceled our annual dev retreat. Unnecessary expense, he called it. Never mind that it cost less than his signing bonus. A week later, he reorganized the entire engineering team without even looping me in and brought in his Stanford pals as consultants. About a month ago, during a leadership call, he referred to me as old school. so we needed to rebuild from the ground up. I saw the writing on the wall, but stayed focused. Karen picked up on it immediately. They're pushing you out, aren't they? She asked one night. Maybe, I replied. What are you going to do? I didn't answer. Just updated my files that weekend, double-checked copyright certificates, backed up my personal code, made sure everything was buttoned up. Not because I planned anything, just because I like to be ready. Through it all, I kept one thing to myself. The algorithm that powered everything Iron Veil sold, it had never been transferred. I'd licensed it. There's a difference. A big one. 3 days after getting let go, I was fixing a broken fence in our backyard when my phone started buzzing. 5 missed calls from the Iron Veil switchboard. 2 from Julian's number. 1 voicemail. Hunter, it's Julian. We're having some trouble with the core systems. Need your expertise. Call me back ASAP. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept hammering. An hour later, more messages poured in. Former team members. Systems are going down. The consultants had broken something vital in the core. Clients were threatening to cancel contracts. I finished the fence, took a shower, and made dinner for Karen and the kids. We watched a movie. I turned off my phone. Next morning, I woke up to an email from Julian. Subject line, urgent consulting opportunity. Inside was a $300 per hour offer to help smooth out transition issues. No mention of my firing. I declined politely. By noon, their legal team reached out about proprietary technology and employee obligations. I forwarded it to my lawyer without saying a word. An hour later, he called, laughing. They clearly didn't read your original contracts, he said. The copyright's in your name. You licensed the algorithm. They're not allowed to modify it without written approval. You're solid. That's when it really hit me. 18 years. All those weekends, missed games, late-night fixes, and they tossed me aside like obsolete tech. I walked into my home office and opened a drawer. Inside was a business card I'd kept for almost a year. Elaine Winters, CTO at Meridian Systems. She'd approached me at a conference last spring, impressed with our work. If you ever want to move on, she'd said, we'll build something special. Back then, I was still loyal. Now, I was free, but I didn't call Elaine, at least not right away. Instead, I drove out to Lake Washington and sat by the shore. Boats crisscrossed the water in quiet rhythm. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about code or uptime. My phone rang again. Hunter, we need to talk, Julian said. The system's collapsing. Clients are threatening to leave. The consultants can't understand what you built. We need you back. As what? A pause. Senior consultant. Appropriate compensation, of course. And the legacy systems? Another pause. We may have been hasty in how we judged their value. Across the water, I watched a heron glide to a stop on a nearby dock. I'll think about it, I said. But I already knew. I wasn't going back. Not on their terms. That was the key. On the drive home, my thoughts were still, but my decision was firm. The realization wasn't just that they needed me. It was that I didn't need them. 2 days later, accepted Ella's invitation for lunch. We met at a quiet restaurant in Bellevue, far from Seattle's tech scene. I heard about Iron Veil's situation, she said once we'd ordered. Their systems have been unstable for nearly a week. I nodded, but didn't say much. Their clients are getting anxious, especially the healthcare networks. I took a sip of water. They've got good engineers, I said finally, but not the architect. She studied me carefully. You built something incredible there, Hunter. Something that shouldn't collapse because of executive short-sightedness. Then she slid a folder across the table. Inside was a formal job offer. Chief Innovation Officer. Double my old salary. Equity. The chance to build my own team. We want to develop the next generation of what you created, she said. But with you at the center this time, respected, not sidelined. I told her I'd think about it. Wanted to discuss it with Karen first. When I got home, a black sedan was parked outside. 2 men in tailored suits stood on the porch. Iron Veil's lawyers. Mr. Mercer, the older one, said, "We've been trying to reach you regarding an urgent company matter." "I'm not with the company anymore," I replied. "This concerns intellectual property developed during your employment. We'll need all your personal devices for review." Standard procedure. I knew what they were fishing for. Some shred of proof. I'd use company resources or a stolen code, something they could use to void my license. You'll need to speak with my attorney, I said, handing over Harold's card. I've got nothing else to say. That evening, Julian called again. Your lawyer's being difficult, he said. This could get messy, Hunter. Legal fights, press attention. No one wants that. What do you want, Julian? Come back. 6 months. Full salary. Help the consultants get through the transition. In return, we part peacefully. You waive the IP claim. The company keeps the tech. You get a clean break. The core algorithm was never Iron Veil's property, I said. I licensed it to the company before I was even on payroll. Silence. That's ridiculous. Anything you developed is considered work for hire. Check the licensing agreement from 2004. Still valid. That documentation doesn't exist. Harold has a copy. I have a copy. So does the U.S. Copyright Office. Longer silence. We'll need to verify that, he finally said. Take your time. The next day, Iron Veil revoked access for my entire former team, while their consultants attempted to rewrite the core. By evening, 3 major client servers had fully crashed. Karen found me in the garage, lining up old tools I hadn't touched in years. They're unraveling, aren't they? She asked. I nodded. Does that make you feel better? I put down the wrench. No, good people still work there. They don't deserve this. Neither did you, she said gently. The next morning, Iron Veil's stock fell 20% after news broke about critical system outages. Former teammates started texting. What did you do? Did you sabotage anything before leaving? I replied to each message the same way. I didn't touch a thing. They altered a licensed system without consent. By afternoon, Julian had shifted from threats to desperate offers, a high-paying consulting role, a public apology. I didn't reply. The consultants found the licensing agreement in Harold's archive files. Within an hour, Iron Veil's legal team contacted my attorney in a completely different tone. The trap they tried to set had collapsed under their own weight. A week after I was let go, I met Harold for lunch. He'd been retired 3 years, but still kept a distant watch over the company he'd built. They really stepped in it, he said, shaking his head. Trying to rebuild your algorithm from scratch? Idiots. We were sitting in his favorite Tacoma diner, the kind of place where no one looked twice at a quiet conversation. Did you see this coming? I asked. Harold stirred his coffee slowly. I knew they didn't understand what they'd bought. These private equity guys never do. All they see is numbers, not structure, not the actual system. He pulled a weathered folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Remember this? Inside was our original agreement from 2004. Not my employee contract, but a personal deal between Harold and me. It clearly stated that the algorithm remained my intellectual property, with Iron Veil receiving an exclusive, perpetual license only as long as I remained employed or we agreed to part ways mutually. You protected me, I said quietly. Harold nodded. You were taking a risk joining a startup. I wanted to make sure you kept ownership if things ever went sideways. Did the new owners know? I tried to tell them during due diligence, he said, but they weren't interested. Said it was all old technical noise. He made air quotes. They just wanted the client list and the IP rights. And that's when everything clicked into place. Julian hadn't fired me for being out of date. The firm was planning to carve up Iron Veil, sell off client portfolios, patent rights, anything they could unbundle for a quick return. But to do that, they needed me out of the picture. The one person who understood how it all worked. This was never about fresh perspectives, I muttered. They just needed me gone to make the asset strip easier. There's more, Harold said, leaning in. Before I left, I added a clause to the sale agreement. If the core tech fails for more than 10 straight days, I have the right to buy back the company at a fixed price. I stared at him. Why would they agree to that? They didn't read the fine print, Harold smirked. Too focused on closing the deal. I told them it was a fallback clause to protect their investment. So you could buy it back. We could buy it back, he corrected. I've got some capital lined up. A few of the early backers are in. But we need you. The pieces started shifting in my head. Not revenge. Something more precise. A correction. That evening, I received an anonymous email. Inside was evidence that Julian and his consultants had been planning to sell Iron Vale's healthcare division to a competitor, violating client trust and likely exposing sensitive data. Clearly, someone from my old team was still in my corner. I sent it straight to my lawyer. The next morning, 3 major clients froze their contracts, citing performance issues. Their business accounted for nearly 40% of Iron Vale's revenue. By the weekend, the board had called an emergency session. Julian was placed on administrative leave. On day 9 of the system outages, Iron Vale's legal team reached out with a settlement proposal. A 7-figure payout in exchange for immediate license reinstatement. I didn't respond. That night, Karen and I sat on the back deck, watching the sun dip below the pines. Harold wants to buy the company back, I told her. With you? She asked. With me. She reached over and took my hand. Do you want that? I looked out at the fading sky and thought about it. 16 years of code, late nights, and missed family milestones. Not sure yet, I said honestly. Tomorrow's day 10. Day 10 came with Iron Vale's systems still offline. Financial analysts were predicting collapse if the outage dragged on. Former colleagues said half the office was empty, either layoffs or people jumping ship. I met Harold and my attorney in a quiet downtown office. Elaine from Meridian joined by video. The board is panicking, my lawyer said. They've offered $3 million for a permanent license transfer. And if we wait? I asked. Harold's buyback clause activates at midnight. The agreed-upon price, $8 million for the whole company. Harold leaned in. I've raised 4. We need partners for the rest. All eyes turned to Elaine on the screen. Meridian is ready to partner, she said. $4 million for a 40% stake. If Hunter signs on as CTO, with appropriate equity. I hadn't expected that. I thought you wanted me at Meridian. This is better, Elaine replied. You'd be restoring something that matters to you, with real support, and our teams can collaborate on future ventures. My head spun with possibilities. Taking Iron Vale back meant saving jobs, preserving client trust, continuing a mission I believed in. There's one more condition, I said. The employees who stayed through all this, they deserve protection. Agreed, Harold said. No layoffs for 6 months. And we'll launch an employee ownership plan. I nodded. Then I'm in. We spent the rest of the day preparing. My lawyer finalized a license revocation with binding terms. Harold reached out to board members he still trusted. Elaine drafted partnership paperwork. At 5 p.m., we filed official notice of Harold's intent to execute the buyback. At 6, Julian called. He sounded frantic. Hunter, whatever they're offering, we'll double it. Just fix the platform. It's not about the money. Then what? A public apology? Your job back? Name it. It's about building something meaningful. Something that lasts. This is business, not fantasy. I hung up. By 8 p.m., Julian had been terminated. The board contacted us directly, trying to avoid the buyback. We've made errors, the chairman said, but we can fix this. You're right, I replied. Start by honoring the clause and preparing the transition. At 11:30 p.m., 30 minutes to deadline, they folded. The board approved the buyback. Meridian's partnership was accepted. The deal was signed just past midnight. Sitting at my kitchen table, I drafted an email to my old team. The algorithm will be reinstated tomorrow. Iron Vale is under new ownership. No jobs will be lost. More details at the all-hands meeting. Karen sat beside me as I hit send. So, you're going back? She asked. Not back, I said. Forward. I closed my laptop. New company. New rules. You'll be busier than ever, she said. For a while, I admitted. But I won't miss the moments that matter this time. She smiled, skeptical but hopeful. The next morning, I walked into the office for the first time since I'd been pushed out. People watched as I passed. Some were confused, others relieved. Donna from accounting hugged me in the elevator. What's happening? She whispered. Long story, I said. Short version? Sometimes you have to let something break before you can fix it right. The conference room was packed for the all-hands. Harold stood at the front, energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. Elaine joined by video. I took my place beside them, feeling the weight of what we were about to rebuild. This wasn't revenge, it was restoration. 6 months after we regained control of Iron Veil, we held a product launch at the Seattle Convention Center. The room was full: clients, analysts, journalists. Harold kicked off with the company's story and vision. Elaine spoke about our new partnership with Meridian. It was my turn. I stepped up to the podium, fully aware that Julian was sitting in the back row. He'd landed at a competitor, clearly here to scout. Today, we're introducing Integrasphere, I said. A completely reimagined system architecture that honors our foundation while pushing into new territory. The screen behind me lit up with the interface: sleek, intuitive, powerful. But what truly makes this different isn't the tech. It's the people who built it. I looked toward the front row, where my dev team Saturday. Many of them have been here over a decade. They built this system together. And we've restructured Iron Veil to reflect that. Our team now holds ownership stakes, because commitment like theirs deserves more than applause. Applause broke out. I noticed Julian shifting in his seat. We're also launching the Iron Veil Foundation, I continued. We'll open source parts of our technology for use in education and public projects. More applause. And finally, every client affected by last year's outage will receive 2 years of service, free, plus full migration support to Integrasphere. The room erupted. It was a bold financial move. But Harold, Elaine, and I had agreed. Restoring trust was worth more than a bottom line. When we opened the floor for questions, Julian slipped out the back. He'd come expecting to see a company crawling out of disaster. Instead, he witnessed one reborn. By closing bell, his new employer's stock dropped 8%. Sometimes the best response isn't revenge, it's rising. A year after the buyback, I drove out to Lake Washington early on a Saturday. No laptop, no messages, just a fishing rod and a small cooler. Harold was already in the boat, silver hair under his old baseball cap. Right on time, he grinned as I climbed aboard. We cruised out to his usual spot, cast our lines, and sat in companionable silence. Board approved the expanded employee ownership, he said at one point. Another 5% allocated. Good, I said, watching the line drift. They've earned it. We didn't catch anything for a while. Talk about our kids, baseball, nothing serious. Eventually, Harold asked, "Do you ever think about how it all played out?" I thought for a moment. The past 18 months have been some of the hardest and most meaningful of my life. Taking back Iron Veil, rebuilding not just the systems, but the trust, finding a balance between home and work. Sometimes I think about the algorithm, I said. How something I wrote in my apartment ended up being the backbone of all this. Any regrets? I shook my head. I could have left, taken another job, started fresh somewhere else. But I stayed because I believed in what we were doing and who we were doing it with. And now I understand the difference between being loyal to something and actually owning it, between building something and belonging to it. My line went tight. I stood up slowly and reeled in a solid-sized base. When we got into the boat, Harold chuckled. Still got it. Later, heading back to shore, I spotted the Iron Veil building in the distance. Its logo reflected the morning sun. It wasn't the same company anymore. In some ways, it was stronger. In others, still finding its way. But it was ours now, not just mine or Harold's or Elaine's. It belonged to all of us. Some things can't be owned alone. Some things shouldn't be.